My goal in this tutorial is to show you how to take the 4 rather desaturated clips of Emily Stump. Again, this was a period 11 bit of video that we captured. Very unsaturated, meaning it doesn't have, or desaturated, doesn't have much color in it, doesn't have a great deal of pop to it. And it was taken with a bunch of different camera settings, which are noted in the title of each of the video clips. For instance, one has a really high f-stop, one has a very low f-stop, and as a result, the ISO is very high or very low, and or the shutter speed has been adapted when we went outside. So you're going to see a bunch of the characteristics of each of these 3 parameters which control the exposure of the shot in the video, and we're also going to try and just get our base color correction down to make our video, well, just look good. So in this case, we're going to start a new project, and this is color correction, which goes along with the title of the event. So color correction, and I'm just going to bring all 4 of these files in. I'm just going to drag and click so I select all 4 at the same time. You can also click Command A, and then I'm going to remove the audio out of each of these clips to ensure that I'm not listening to myself give directions from class. And I just want to make sure that the inside clips are back to back and the outside clips are back to back. So outside, outside, inside, and inside. One of these files is actually a photograph, so we can see that this works with all kinds of media, not just video. It also works with our photographs if you insert a photograph for some reason. And the reason I'm using Robert Dunbar's Final Cut Pro, or his computer, is because the look has changed with the most recent update to Final Cut Pro, and quite frankly, you can't access color correction the same way as we have in the past. Now, under the effects, there's typically an option, and color correction is already set up or floating up here underneath the effects by default, and currently there is nothing sitting here. It just says effects and turned on. So again, we're going to need to add a color correction, and in order to do that, Command 6 will open our color board, which is very much like the previous version that I've been running on my laptop. However, the color corrections can be found in the upper right hand corner of the color board. So I'm going to add a color correction, and this being our primary color correction, I can go back and see that it's now added a color correction to the effects portion for this clip. And actually, it's actually being assigned to the second clip, sorry, for this photograph. So we currently have a color board selected for our basic color correction. If you select the mask tool, you can add a shape mask or a color mask. This used to be 2 separate icons. Again, another reason for me to be using Robert's computer. Things are going to look a little different. Now, this base correction, we don't want to just target any one part of the clip or any one specific color within the clip. We want to target the entire thing and get all of the colors to look better, to look a little richer, which the camera set up the way we have it is giving us a very flat image, which gives us a great deal of contrast and detail. So to get started, we'll come back to the color board, and we're also going to open up the video scopes, which is under this view tab or view drop down within the viewer window, top right corner of the actual viewer window. I'm also going to maximize some screen real estate by closing our library tab and then also sliding over both our video scopes and our clips, or available clips. Alright. Now, with the clip selected, we can take a look at our first video scope, and there are some options here. Currently, I have the waveform selected, and it's also selected for Luma. That's actually a pretty good place for us to start when getting our first basic correction information underway. So waveform and Luma is a good place to start. Now what we wish to do, or what I want to do with this, is to take a look at the image itself and to make sure that our brightest spots, and actually I can see two flat spikes which actually align with or giving us information about the two very bright spots for the light banks from the ceiling in the back of this image. And these both reach the 100 mark in our clip. And a good place for our highlights to sit is right on the 75 line. We don't want our highlights going up into this 75 to 100 space, so we're going to bring down our highlights to 75. To do this, we're going to go into exposure, which is again the brightness or darkness of a clip, and we want to deal with our highlights first, which is this solid, the farthest right handle. And when I select it, I can begin bringing down the highlights, and I've just was able to drop the brightest parts of our clip down to that 75 line, or that 75 cutoff threshold. I'm going to do the same thing with our darks, and I'm going to bring the darks down to 0, our blacks down to 0. So we want the darkest of our shadows to come all the way down to that 0 threshold, and our brightest parts to sit up around the 75 threshold. This is actually the very edge of our clips, the black edges of our clips, because this is not a cropped photograph yet. And so this black trim part is actually in the viewer window. So that's why I'm seeing this drop off and black, which is sitting on 0, and that's fine because it is black. Now with the brightest highlights and the darkest shadows set, we can now begin to play with our midtones. And our midtones are all those grays that exist between the bright white and the dark black. And we can begin to adjust our exposure so that way we can see the greatest amount of detail in our image. If the shadows are too dark, again, you'll lose detail. If your shadows are too bright, again, you'll lose detail. So we're just trying to find a place where we feel we have the greatest contrast in our clip. And I'm typically looking at the detail in her shirt and or her face. And so that way I can see details within Emily's face and jacket. I think it looks pretty good. And I got a 3% increase to the midtones to brighten it up. Again, if your midtones live somewhere in the middle of this 0 to 75 scale, I think you're going to have a pretty good balanced image. The darker portion here, and you can actually see it has a blue cast to it, is actually showing us the dark color of her blue shirt. And again, obviously it's darker, so it's sitting down closer to black. And then the whiter portions of the image, the back wall, again, is sitting nice and bright, and also the floor is sitting nice and bright, with the 75 being the top of our highlights. And I'm going to bring that down just a hair as well.